32. And I would like to welcome everyone to the SVSU Policy Committee. I'm sorry. Wow. Hopefully everybody got their packet today. Who we have online is Jackie, Kelly. This is the only question. Oh,
Chris.
and we got Chris Murphy. All right.
Kernan's here too, Kernan McMyer. Bennington, he's also here.
Okay, he's there too. So we'll have to remind everybody, if you're online, we want them to either see a wave or a hand when it comes time for a vote, so that we'll make sure we acknowledge that we've gotten a vote from that. So Max Gary is saying he's on there too.
Yes.
I can't hear him and don't see him either.
He's muted. Chris, you're muted.
Not Chris.
Hello.
We have no.
Right, if Kernan doesn't turn his camera on, we will not see him.
Okay, but North Bennington, and that's what we're saying, we need to have a voice to know that you're there, that's all.
It's also showing that Cat TV is here too. You go down to the 7.
The Cat TV is there too?
Yes.
Okay. This is February 6th, and we won't be holding a meeting time, normally go from 4:30 to 6, and it shouldn't take us that long tonight, depending on how many questions, but I'll go through tonight. We strongly encourage attendance in public, because it makes it easy to negotiate the comments and so forth for the policies. We have for the agenda tonight, public comments, we have minutes, we have policy 5087, 5405, and 22,000. And then we have policy 4001, harassment of employees. We have a draft policy of homeless of 5008, and the tracking sheet. And then the FYI for the circulation for one of those items is 5050 and policy 5085. Future policies we have out there is 4003, bullying prevention in adults. And at the end of the meeting, I would like to add another policy on that, but I won't do it now because we're not ready to discuss that now. Is there any changes that need to go to that agenda?
Suggestion?
Yes.
Because I do have to do a meeting on next door in about 30 minutes. Can we push the ones that I'm affiliated with to the top of the list?
Yes, I was gonna.
Nice.
That's why we have that. So the ones you're affiliated with that you want to come to the top of the list, man?
4001-2200.
Okay.
That way I have a cushion time to get that set up.
4001, and I missed the other one.
2200.
Okay, so we'll make 22 first, and we'll do 4,000 number 2. Okay, is that okay with everybody? Second, and we'll kick off with 5087. In your packet, you should have got a copy of policy 2200, and the range my group did say 2200. I didn't have any additional comments for 2200, but Jonathan may have some, so you can tell us what it is that you have a concern, or what it is that you got.
That one, I have no real, hold on 1 second, let me just, my laptop's doing the laptop thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did the header update. I think that was one of the things that we talked about, is making sure the header got out there.
Otherwise, it just says it follows all state. That one's pretty easy. Yeah.
So I have a question, if Jonathan doesn't, and my question is, have the admin regs been updated as well?
The admin regs will follow the adoption of the policy when it goes to SVSU in terms of putting it out. Okay? He's still looking.
Only thing that if I may say something,
Yes.
one of the things that we are supposed to add into it is gender identity under the list of basis of age, race, color, creed, sex, national origin, marital status, sexual orientation, or disability. Like gender identity should be added somewhere in that.
Okay, that won't change.
Just somewhere in the list.
There's somewhere it needs to list, and when you find that wherever you need it, I put that, you can send that on to Laura, and we can still have this ready to go. Out. With that addition.
In the 4001 policy, there is, and maybe we want to be consistent with how we list all of those, but there is race, color, national origin, marital status, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity. You know, there's a whole list that we may want to just be consistent with the use of that language in each of the policies.
Right, that's what I think that's what he was picking up.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yes, the goal is to be consistent with the language when we start to show all that out there. So if that is not exactly matched up, which I didn't compare it that way, we'll be wanting to make that happen.
Is that the list that you and Dina got?
Actually, I think so. I put in here what Dina gave me.
Okay, so you'll just double check.
Yeah.
We'll just double check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So are there any other questions? So she's gonna, Lisa gonna follow up with the legal to make sure that there was no problem along with adding that or changing that, because, and then we want, Nicole was saying, we want to be consistent with all of it. With that particular set of language, and I agree with that. So, if, with that, it should be no reason where I want to ask clarify that we,
It's already been more.
yeah, send that on to SVSU for adoption. Is that okay? Jack and Chris, okay?
Yep.
All right. The next policy on here is policy 4,000, employee unlawful harassment. And at the top of that page.
4001.
Yeah, what did I not say?
You said
You said 4,000.
Oh, I'm set, 4,001. I'm sorry, thank you. Okay, I'll let Jonathan take the first stab at this if you wanted to. You had questions, or you just here to answer some that
I'm
somebody
just
else?
here to answer if anybody has, all the recommendations, I believe were added in, so.
Okay,
Do you wanna-
then I'll,
Well,
Working on it.
there's a couple of things that I believe after which we decided we should probably add, like, one of the things in the intro / summary, one of the things that should be added is a provision against retaliation. Retaliation is unlawful in itself. That would say retaliation against any person raising good faith allegations of unlawful harassment or against any witness cooperating in an investigation pursuant to this policy is prohibited. Adding that in is actually, it's in the,
It's in the
Yes.
definitions, but
that's
it's
in
not at the
one of
top,
the,
right?
It's number 4.
that's what I was saying, no, sexual harassment, and then you start the,
Do you need it listed as part of the policy, you mean? Not as
I would
part
say
of the-
put it at the top too, because
Mary Sheedy or two.
you want it at the top, let's say, okay.
like where it's, But they're talking about the actual overview of the policy, because you want that. I mean, I would imagine we would want people to see that right off the bat too, as opposed to having to read through the whole policy and say, oh yeah, this was applicable.
So everything should be before the definitions. So let me,
Right, anything
the
that's,
example you had on the others, on page 2, on, shouldn't that be, I mean, following the second paragraph before we get to definitions?
Yeah.
Here, I think what you're looking for,
Is what we, the unlawful harassment can be included, is what I'm saying, in any unwelcome included, any unwelcome verbal or written and so forth. You're giving that example, and I'm thinking that example needed to be before we do the definitions, is that?
Well, what I'm saying is like, so this is the one that the VSBA put, and the VSBA, like, the initial, when they introduced the policy, they basically outlined the policy, but they also outlined exactly what else is included, and that's saying, retaliation. Then in the definitions underneath, they basically define what retaliation is.
Right, we'll have to do that in the definition.
Yeah,
So,
I'm saying like in the place where, Lisa has it highlighted now or in gray,
right,
like the retaliation should be also included there.
okay. Where do we want to put that? Unlawful sexual advances, requests of sexual favors or other verbal, physical conduct, communication. Agreements,
Passing that over.
as defined below R. So it needs to go before R, I mean, after physical conduct R. Oh, you took,
No, because it's retaliation, so it just has to go.
So I'm saying add,
After that.
you're just saying add the word in there.
add this part after that part.
Yeah.
That way, it's clearly laid out and delineated that.
You don't want to change the statement above it, you
Yeah.
just want to add that after it.
Okay.
I think is what
Yeah.
the-
And that's really.
Okay, so if you add that after that, which is the statement, Lisa has that statement to go in there, and then what I was saying was that the example that was given on the other page, which you got example 2.
Yeah.
Why would we have that so far down? Because that incorporated everything as an example. It's out in the middle of the definitions.
I think, I don't know, I didn't create it. It's from the VSBA. They have their own.
Yes, and so that's what I'm asking everybody, do you think you needed
what's
to
the
move?
VSBA template? What is theirs look?
It's a template B5,
Can I just look at that?
of course.
So I just saw that, and so I'll ask the committee here whether you think it needs to stay right there, or it should be put before we go into the definitions as an example. So then when somebody read all of it and said, okay, this is what it is, and then you go on down below and you start seeing the definitions of what the things are in the example.
Can I ask a question? Is that example, does that fall under 6, under the definitions? Does the example go specifically pretty much with 6?
Well,
pretty much all our policies have the definitions first.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about that example. Does that example that's right in the middle of the definitions go with 6?
It's not.
no, that's what I kept reading, I'm saying it didn't go there, it had
So I
everything.
understand.
Our formatting is different.
Yeah.
and-
It's a formatting
I
issue.
get it. Oh, I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah, that makes
But the
sense.
example, the way that they have it presented here makes sense. It's the policy statement.
Yep.
The definitions of the words that are in the policy.
Yeah.
Examples of what harassment would include, and then specific examples related to each of the different elements.
Yeah, and I personally think that the second paragraph of the policy before the definition should include retaliation. So it would read probably something like this: the district shall provide employees a work environment free of unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct or communications constituting harassment as defined below, and shall encourage and shall encourage an employee targets of harassment and employees who have firsthand knowledge of such harassment report these incidents to the appropriate person and without retaliation.
Okay, so that whole,
And that's where the word retaliation should go, I believe. And then it follows that the definition of retaliation would be defined below it. But your policy is those first two paragraphs. And
Right.
Jonathan was absolutely right. It should go up there, but not in the first paragraph, but the second paragraph.
okay, so.
Maybe without the threat of retaliation.
Well, there's language that exists. Why don't you just pick up the language that exists?
So if you want, I could read out the exact policy from the B5.
Well, if, you can, but I thought the word from the retaliation and adding the definition, but we still talking about where we want to put it. You can tell us what it says, but.
So I would say harassment is a form of unlawful discrimination that will not be tolerated in the SVSU. Unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, or other written or physical conduct constituting harassment as defined herein and by state and federal law violate this policy. Then comes retaliation against any person raising good faith allegations of unlawful harassment or against any witnesses cooperating in an investigation pursuant to this policy is prohibited. That's what like the SBA version says.
That's very well written, and I would just take out that second paragraph and put that in, Jonathan.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah, I think unless we have fundamental issues with the VSBA policies, I would be inclined to follow the VSBA policies.
You mean the second paragraph of the second paragraph? You want the whole,
The second
substitute
paragraph of the
substitute.
policy. The second paragraph of the policy. So the first paragraph says, it is the policy. The second paragraph
Right.
starts with the district shall.
Right. And that's the one you're saying you'd rather take out and put the statement in that Jonathan just read.
Yes.
That's right.
And where's that statement? You just had it somewhere. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's you want it.
Perfect.
Okay. Trying to see whether she can get read. Take a note that that's where that statement goes.
You said it anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the other easier way to just go into the VSBA website and copy paste.
Yeah.
That way.
Okay, and then, so we heard that, then we got definitions.
That one added on to the. Yes.
Oh, wait, we're getting definitions on all the places, and then I'm still concerned about the example being in the middle of what that means. Before we get to administrative responsibilities. I don't know why it's sticking right there and sitting there.
Well, because under the examples section of the policy, harassment is one example, sexual harassment is one example, racial and color harassment is one. Those are all subsets of
Different types of.
different examples of what that harassment looks like.
Okay, so you think it should stay right there, it's in the right place then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Then we're only adding to the examples to match the VSBA. I'm gonna just go through the list because it's easier that way. sex, race and color, religion and creed, national origin and place of birth, age, marital status, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, genetic information. That's the baseline or that's the baseline VSBA. I will say personally, in my professional opinion, there's two that I do believe should be explicitly outlined. One of which is ethnicity and or ancestry, primarily because that's also covered under EEOC federal law, as well as pregnancy, which is also covered under EEOC federal law. So including those two would probably, as examples, would probably be for the best, considering those are federally covered equal employment law. That's a federal thing I don't think anybody wants to run afoul from.
So you're not talking about changing anything associated with that?
No, I'm not talking about change. I'm talking about doing the list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus the 2 additional ones that I'm recommending, but that is for the board to decide. Ethnicity and or ancestry, primarily because ethnicity and ancestry is actually a difference from race, which as most people understand it, and also pregnancy, because pregnancy is in itself also making any discriminatory or harassment based remarks on pregnancy is in violation to equal employment opportunity, and I always forget to see law.
I agree. I'm just saying that's on the harassment may include any unwelcome verbal or written physical conducts, and all of those are in there. Now,
The ethnicity and ancestry is not. And neither in pregnancy is mentioned under the sex part,
right.
but it's not explicitly laid out.
Ancestry's there.
This-
Well, age discrimination is, age discrimination also.
It says color,
Oh, wow. Right, no, I looked at the wrong one.
origin status, but then age and ancestry is in there.
Okay, that is my mistake.
See
Okay.
pregnancy also.
Then the pregnancy is in parentheses, yeah, behind sex.
I think I printed out the wrong one. My apologies.
Yeah, well, okay, so that's okay. All right. This would be a first time for this one in terms of warning and going out in this format. So, is there anything else that we needed to look at in it? The strikeout is reporting, and we have other places to do that.
And on that note, I do have to go because people are going to show up for my meeting.
Okay, so, with the strikeouts and everything, and they'll stay in, but I think we'll then be ready to send this out for a warning and have everybody look at it and come back and give us some additional information. We need to have some with that out that way. Don't know why all of the shade, that was, I was looking at all of them, yellow and so forth, was that?
Those were additions made based on the updated VSBA policy.
Okay.
Those are things I cross-checked line by line and put in the things that were not there before or that they updated.
Okay. And the others that was stricken out with the highlights and stripes.
I'll
Be in the room next door if you need me.
Our formats are very,
Okay.
at times, very different.
Yes, but the VSBA, and I'd be happy to send you one, or you can look it up. They all say, the model policies they make are a jump up.
Right,
Yeah.
they are to be customized
They-
and personalized. and-
Do not think that, you have to use them verbatim.
So we'll take that and with the addition,
I did add that paragraph in, Leon,
you did?
from the VSBA up top. So it's there, and then you want we wanted to take that other paragraph out, right? So the yellow,
It's the one that was.
that's the
added.
one that just came from VSBA.
We were gonna substitute for.
Right, and then
Yeah.
the
One
one
below.
is,
Right,
Okay, just want to make sure.
I think.
Yeah, because there's the retaliation sentence.
in there, it's up there,
Yeah.
retaliation against us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 down in the end. For that, for what we're looking for,
Okay.
so.
And this isn't so much a question about policy language per se, but the implementation, and with Jim being now gone, I don't know who can answer the question, but implementation and training of policies like this, how does this get rolled out?
Saying, well, yeah, I'll let you answer that, but that,
Yeah.
the version of it, when you say roll out, and it's not the language that we have that, once it gets to
We don't have.
leave the SVSU and it goes to, and all the document, it goes to the principals and so forth. Administrations here cover those with the dealing principles, and that there are some certain ones they posted in certain things, and others said that they need to be in the handbook and so forth. So all of those go out that way unless it is another way.
Including the superintendent's responsibility.
Right.
To educate principals.
Right, I was gonna say, are
and
they
other
explicitly trained?
Well,
Because how do we hold, I mean, you can say that we've written this policy, we've posted this policy, all the boards have approved this policy. Are they explicitly trained on the policy so that we can then hold people accountable for following the policy? Yes,
Well, I'm not, like, my
the word
example,
training,
yeah, my one example would be, we're spending a lot of time right now. Last year, we worked on the hazing, harassment, and bullying policy. And so it does take time because we have many policies that we're updating. So policy is updated, we provided training to all the administrators uniformly. Last summer and the whole year has been about implementing that work. And then we also use principals meetings as well. And so it's always good input about how we do that and to reflect back.
I don't have any point of reference to say that it's not happening. I would just want to make sure that it's more than just saying,
yes.
make sure that you know what the policies are.
Yeah, and I heard you, I mean, before when you made that comment and so forth, I mean, in another meeting months ago along that line, and I'm saying, okay, the ones that specifically say that they need to make sure they got in the handbook, because we put in student handbook, certain ones that put the information in there, and every parent has to get a copy, or the kids get a copy of it and review. The question I asked when I asked one of the principals, the particular principal that's responsible for certain aspects of implementation when these things come for kids has to be abreast and know what it is that's expected of them and the students along that line. So it's not a just list. That's when I say you train, it's not one where you just hold a meeting, the staff meeting, and we got everyone we're gonna read, and they all gonna go through it, and they some along that line. That's not what happens. We have locations that they all go into, and the specific pockets of the target goes to the individuals that are responsible for managing the outcome of those policies. Okay, how about it, Chris? Jackie, any other questions? If not, okay, we'll go on with that. I'm losing my, yeah. Okay, so now that brings us back to threat and disruption of school operations. And this had been all around. I'm trying to make sure I get my copy here.
We've seen this.
And and it's now ready to, and it's been through and adopted, and it just came back if anybody had any questions and so forth. And seeing anyone, it's all been through the whole process and is ready to go out to get any administrative rigs and anything else that need to happen for that.
No, it's ready for adoption.
It's
It's
ready
been warned, but it's ready for adoption now.
to SVSU. What did I do? Yes, it's ready for adoption. I'm sorry, I looked at the other. We're ready to have that go on. Okay. The next one is 5405 behavior intervention. And behavior intervention is in the same category. It has gone around and had an opportunity to sandgate, and we know when that happens, it happens. But it didn't have any additional changes sent to me from anybody on this policy. Does anyone else have anything else?
No.
No? Okay, so we're ready to move on with 5405. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've done 22, we've done 41. The next one is a draft policy. And we moved up, well, the Vermont School Board Association sent in information concerning the students who are homeless, and it comes at a time where board members were asking questions and everything about homeless students and so forth, so it was right on target to be able to work on and have answers to those so that and when it goes around to the board, they can see it. So this is the first time out of the gate for us for this. And I read through it, and I'll give some others an opportunity to comment on it if you have comments.
I have one comment.
Okay,
Number-
Jackie.
Yes, line 11, the district will designate a liaison for students in a homeless situation to carry out duties such as required by law.
Right.
When I first read this, I thought, well, that's great. But how would the child or student know that there was this person so that they could reach out to them? So maybe not to name a person, but to have a hotline.
You must have been looking at my paper. I had the same thing. But I think in the administrative regs, I should say that there was the administrative regs to follow this.
Well, the reason I said it should be there is because you know, it's published and the admin regs aren't published, or you know, this is like the second paragraph. And so if I'm a kid and I look on the website, you know, about this, there's a homeless thing, and you know, where's the hotline? And
Okay.
and so that's why I thought it should be there. It could be in the admin regs too, but I think it needs to have a hotline.
Where does child find work into this?
Right. And well, this is number 11.
Well, I'm
Okay.
thinking.
Yeah, so,
Okay, Laura has a, yeah.
so I think I do agree that administrative regulations will really kind of take a deeper dive. But right now, it's an incredibly private process. And so we, again, going back to your training question, is providing training to, it starts at the administrative level, and then the social workers and family engagement specialists are trained to be the on-site touch point to make sure that people are aware that they can get, you know, in my role as homeless liaison, get to me. So it's through human beings right now. And then, and I'll make sure, but I'll check to make sure that we do have a process, an internal protocol. And then we also have information on the website, but this is a great example of where we do provide information to the administrators and key staff at the school level, so they quickly know how to access us, and the registrars as well.
So it's multiple right next to the one. I mean, that's why I circled liaison for there and saying, okay, no, a lot of the other places we had named a particular person that was that, but now what we're saying here is the duties of all of the teachers under that category, and people to recognize and a person to make sure that they get all of the necessary things that they have, but they keeps referring to and we go to 19, let's see, 19 in here says, well, in 18, or in the case of an unaccompanied student.
Yep.
The district liaison for the homeless students.
Correct.
Homeless students. It almost indicate that you definitely needed to name us.
We have to name it. So it's an assurance we sign every year. So I'm the designated for the SVSU homeless liaison. And then I have people that are trained to support that role.
Right, and so that's what Jackie's question and mine's would do, in the policy. How do they get to know that unless it says something in here that the district was designated a liaison for the students of the homeless? And then there may need to be something else to say that, who that, whether
Well,
that's.
Chris Murphy has his hand up,
Oh,
and he has had for a little while.
okay, yeah, all right, I'll let Chris go ahead.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Leon. Just responding to the idea of there being a hotline, and I think to go a little bit further than what Laura had pointed out, I think what can happen is that school, I mean, and each school has its own flavor, but schools I've seen, have different bits of signage up. They have different bits of outreach up. I think creating a hotline creates the issue of who is staffing the hotline and how we can be assured that calls to the hotline don't get missed. But if we make it clear in each of our schools that such a person exists, then if it's parents who are with their children who are unhomed, they can see that signage, they can know that there's a person out there to call. We may even choose to identify that person in the signage within the schools. And if it's an unaccompanied youth who is unhoused, the same thing can occur, whether it's on the website they're seeing it, whether they're seeing signage at the main office, whether they're seeing signage with their school-based clinician. I think there are ways to do this that don't necessarily create the problems that would come with creating a hotline.
I think you're absolutely correct, Chris, but my experience with kids is they panic like a half an hour before they have to go home. Okay. And so what do they do in that half an hour? Do they stop and rationally say, oh, there must be a person who's in charge of homeless, So there should be some way that kids could connect, or they get home and nobody's home for days, and whether it's, contact the police, and the police then have the name of that person and can figure it out or something, but kids don't think that deeply. They just panic at that stage.
But they are I hear what you're saying, and what we're looking at is that all over the school district, and we're trying to put the first contact is through the people that have the first-hand contact to recognize the students now. I mean, the students got to get registered and get into the school. And at that point in time, but then you have students that may become homeless after they're in the school.
Correct.
And so these things are addressing those there, and we're saying that we're training everybody to recognize that if someone needed these particular things, they should be able to recognize that and pass that on to the appropriate part of the school for them to be able to get the benefits. how would I know in terms of, I mean, if a person, a student may say something about living in a motel or trailer park just in the classroom. Well, we're saying that the first-hand person in that classroom as a teacher should recognize that and forward that information on up
Correct.
to the recognized person in our school system, which is the assistant superintendent, the principal, whatever. I mean, it just needs to go on up, and that's how it's handled as opposed to naming the person. I mean, if everybody disagree, we can still name that the superintendent is assistant superintendent is the one that is the school liaison.
So the requirement so it's an assurance, again, we sign every year. So the assurance is that there's a designee that plays that role. And, you know, I've been. Years or more. Yeah,
But
but it could, you know what I mean? It could change, but there has to be a designee. That's the important part. And then here's the other thing I will tell you, because this is a required policy. There are a lot of changes happening under this umbrella right now. And so I think the administrative regulations, this is a great conversation that I'm really listening to, because it's going to impact the administrative regulations that we put into play. I just sat on a training today with the Agency of Education around this very thing, because there's a lot happening under this umbrella right now. So I think the administrative regulations is actually where there's going to be some great detail around this.
Because the policy is simply saying the school is responsible for all students regardless of their residential status.
Correct.
Period.
Exactly.
Yes.
And here are the elements that could impact someone's residential status, and homelessness is one of them. But this is not how you identify them, how you work with them. This is just saying we are responsible. Our
Yes.
policy is there will be
Yes.
no stigmatizing, there will be no
Yes.
separation, there will be no limiting of access and
Yes.
opportunity.
Yes.
I agree.
Okay.
That's exactly what this is. But we're having conversation around the debate as to why should we do or should not. And these are good points.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and then it becomes how do you? So
Yeah.
how do you ensure that this can be carried out?
I'm gonna say something that may sound a little barbaric, but the school system is already severely burdened with social issues. I think we gotta be careful about extending too far out of the school system to provide social services. We're responsible for getting them here, getting them an education, getting their safety in the system. I think we gotta be careful about reaching out too far.
But this is
If
part
a
of,
student gets home, like Jackie's example, and there's nobody home,
Yeah, but that's not what this is.
that's
That's
not
not
what
what this
we
is
having
talking
to
about.
do in here.
we aren't, but I'm just saying we gotta be careful about not going there. We're going into an area that
Right.
Yeah, she
we
mentioned
can't
that,
hope to can have any good outcomes.
but agreed that yes,
And I know where Jackie's going, I just,
and
Yeah.
privacy is a problem. The biggest thing, I think, somebody was asking the question at the board, and we said, wait a minute, you can't, there would be no way of everybody knowing what a person is or isn't, you know, unless they tell them themselves.
Right.
The only thing can happen here is there is one of these needs in terms of the definition and the administrative regs that the contact individuals within the classroom or in the administrative notice that a kid is needed of that to make sure that they put them in the right path to get that particular services. And at that particular time, when they get to the liaison, they will know whether they have been classified or not classified a certain way. But we want to make sure we keep everything confident as much as possible. So that's why that's left right there. So if, what we can do is give it an opportunity to generate some more conversation with, at the other boards about this position and see what it is that we need to do to make it much more effective in terms of the rollout. If that's the will of all the different boards around.
So you can warn it and wait for comeback.
Yeah, I would like to warn it and then have everybody read it and have all the different boards, districts have a discussion, just like Chris was talking about and so forth, and saying, had some ideas over there and you know, to make, have some more from Mount Anthony and North Bennington, to have some ideas, or Arlington or Sandgate to have some more ideas out here in terms of this. But the basic thing is, in this particular policy, is that the individuals are to be kept. I'm trying to say,
That we don't identify them publicly, really.
that's what I'm trying to get to say. That's what needs to happen. That this is not something to be categorizing and publicizing in terms of groups of individuals, no. And so you gotta spread it out like this and make sure that each person get the service based on their needs. And so when you go back to your boards, that's what you'll be talking about, but get that conversation piece and then bring it back to us. Okay, there.
Leon, if I could, before we move from that, I
Yes.
think I think the preferred term these days is unhoused as opposed to homeless. I don't know when we want to incorporate that in there, but I think that's the going term these days.
Well, when I kept looking, I looked at that, and it says homeless student means that the lack of a fixed, regular, adequate nighttime residence, which could include a whole bunch of things.
Sure. Yep.
So, but if you say, I mean, and it's kind of hard to define, I mean, to do that, but I mean, we'll still take the consideration out, but this is where it came in from, the Department of Education
Yep.
along that line, and so, but we don't have to live with that, but if the terminology is such that we need to change the identity in a manner in which everybody can understand what it is.
Right.
Then we'll entertain that at a time. Thank you, Chris. So with that, I think we'll put it out and generate some more conversation. For one. Okay. Thank you. So that's next one is the tracking sheet, and we have it. I think everything on the
Did you skip over 5087?
no.
Oh,
We did 5087 first. I mean third. That one has been everywhere, and we all finished with that, and it's just going on. Okay. The friend Kenny is not here, and well, I'm talking about the tracking sheet. We'll talk about the others. He had a question before, but is it anything? The tracking sheet is still showing us where we are in terms of where the policies are and where they've been. Are there any questions concerning the tracking sheet?
No, not with the tracking sheet. How do you identify, Leon, the policies that are going to be up for consideration in the next round? What's the process for,
Okay, well,
what's that?
you jump,
Wait a minute.
you've already jumped in. One, we had that, and when you realize when we was talking about C-13 came from, off the website from the Department of Education, it came, a notice in that they send theirs out to us, and we take the policies that we look at on the line. So now that we've got and gone through these, we'll be going through our own policies online and I bet it hadn't had a chance to get to, and picking some of them off of that. So we ask everybody, it says, take a look at policies that you think we need to bring up for review that hadn't had an opportunity to receive the review, or some new ones, and we'll make them list. And that's why we have now future considerations. So on the bottom of this policy now is left is bullying prevention of adults. I also like the one that was recommended but not required, and this is something that we need, I think we need to do down here. And this is coded as C-22, and that's student athletes, clubs and activities. It's been a lot of questions about how that's managed and how kids are being incorporated into those particular things. And we need to formally have that policy out there. So that would be one going on the list.
Where are you seeing that?
Oh, I have a copy of it, that's all.
Oh,
This is when I'm saying that we're asking everybody to bring policies and look out there and see them and bring it.
so you're reviewing what comes from the VSBA?
I
Your
do.
recommendations, policy updates or additions?
I do that when they
do their
as soon as they
newsletter.
send those things out, I try to look at that list. I may miss some. I think this came back was in November, right, Lisa? I think that one came out on a November note from them, November 2. I think.
But you can bring anything,
But
I
you
don't
can
know,
bring
because I
them.
don't
or
have to
you can
get that.
email Leon and he'll put it on the agenda if you want to.
Do
Right.
principals or administrators do you hear from them if they have specific
We have.
policies? Okay.
Yeah, we have. And that's what we're putting the list out and said everybody. I think someone came up and was talking about cell phone use, electronic use. It came from the high school.
But at high school, we've done a lot of requests.
Yeah, so they made a lot of requests out there. So as we have this, we open the door and says, take a look at the policies. And if we don't have one that's to cover something, or you don't think we have one, it's where a lot of the questions come up and says, you don't have anything to cover that. Well, let's go to the SVSU website and you can see that we did have something to cover that along that line. So that's how a lot of things are happening. Lisa?
We have policy 5210, which is student clubs and activities.
Yeah, and so, we're gonna be,
Oh, compare the two.
yeah. It's what we're gonna be doing. I'm sorry about that. So we'll be doing, thank you. Thanks.
The other thing we've done sometimes is research other states' policies on something. If you don't see it on the website, and it's something that bothers you. Everybody else has got Virginia, North Carolina, and California, which
Yeah.
we're on from.
We did a lot of that and I went down,
Residency, I think, was one of them.
we go south. So we put in a word out there and say policy or something and you just Google it and you'll be surprised to know what you get coming back to you from the various school districts all over the United States. And so when we don't have something, we go out and get stuff like that and come back and say, this is what they're doing in Florida, or this is what they're doing in California or Connecticut, along that line, and then we decide to move on. So,
Bring what you want or email Leon, it's pretty, or Lisa.
yeah.
She's actually the boss here anyway.
No.
So are there any other recommendations before we go on? We're saying we're gonna meet April 3rd of 23, so we'll be trying to put together a list before that time, say 2 to 3 weeks, that probably would give us a chance to look these things over, because we try to read them and understand and make sure that we have the right resources to help research the policy if they need be in terms of the legal schedule, a schedule from the principals before we move on and put it up for tonight's discussion. So it's a lot of work that goes on behind the scene in terms of getting the policies ready to come out and be discussed at this level. None? Well, that concludes all of the activity for the night. It's 5:25, and unless somebody else have something else, I like to have a motion to
So moved. Adjourn.
adjourn. It's been moved, and this is a small committee. We don't have to have a second for that. We're all set in. So I'll see you by April 3rd.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.